It is almost here, Bengals fans. The NFL draft is just one day away, and it's time for me to reveal my top 10 players on the Cincinnati Bengals Talk Big Board. Hi again, everyone, and welcome in to Cincinnati Bengals Talk. I'm James Rapien of allbengals.com, and you heard that right. Cincinnati Bengals Talk Big Board, because, I don't pretend to be this film grinder or film breakdown artist. I'm certainly not, Dane Brugler or Joe Goodberry, who we've had on, or even a former NFL player like Tony Pike, who we've had on, which is a reminder to check out those interviews if you've missed them. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell. But I do take everybody's opinion into consideration. I watch enough to get an idea of these guys. And by this time of the year, usually I have my consensus, my preference, as you do, based on what you've done and the research you've done. And by now, normally I have a lot of this done much earlier, but when your team that you cover plays through mid-February, where it's taken a little time. And so now I feel, and I better, right? The draft is on Thursday. It's tomorrow. Pretty confident in how I would have the ranking. And so the Bengals picking 31st, if they were picking 5th, maybe I would reveal a big board of a couple of guys and maybe a trade down candidate or two. This year, since it's 31st, I'm going to give you 10 guys, 10 players in order, by the way, of where I would have them ranked. If it's the Cincinnati Bengals Talk Big Board. By the way, Andrew Fox Miller didn't approve this big board, but we're calling it the Cincinnati Bengals Talk Big Board anyway. Here's how it would go. It would start with Iowa sender Tyler Linderbaum. And I'm going to shout this from the mountains and continue to say it because I think NFL teams, for all the research they do, sometimes overthink things. And it really does feel like Tyler Linderbaum could fall out of the first round, could fall past the Bengals. And who knows, maybe he doesn't make it to the Bengals. Maybe a team like Dallas picks him. But if he falls out of the first round, and I was texting with someone, I'm not going to reveal who because it's a name drop, but I was texting with someone today. I'm like, NFL teams sometimes overthink it. And if he falls out of round one, we're going to look up in 5 years and he's going to be a 3-time Pro Bowler, 4-time Pro Bowler, maybe 3-time All-Pro. Like, he's just a stud. And I get it, 31 and an eighth inch arms, 302 pounds at his pro day, 296 at the combine. So he's underweight. He's under that threshold. Oh man, he's only 6'2", he's not 6'3", and he's a bleeping baller. And that's what I want. That's the funny thing. When you talk about Linderbaum, there's very few things that people mention as far as his tape is concerned. Does he get pushed back a little bit in pass protection against bigger defensive tackles? He does. But he re-anchors. This isn't Billy Price, so all you knuckleheads that are saying it's Billy Price, go find a rock and kick it as hard as you can. All right, don't do that, but take a deep breath, because if it was Billy Price, I would tell you it was Billy Price. And I think evaluators would say that. This guy doesn't lean with his short arms. He's a wrestler, and he's in this little phone booth, as Dave Lapham likes to say. And I think he's a beast. I think, he tested like an elite athlete. The film shows an elite athlete. He's able to get to the second level. He's able to move across the line of scrimmage. I think he becomes a dominant player. And I was talking with someone who would know. I was like, yeah, he could have a Creed Humphrey style impact in year one. Well, guess what? I want a Creed Humphrey style center in year one. The Bengals got it wrong last year when they picked Jackson Carman over Creed Humphrey. They could get it right on Thursday night if Tyler Linderbaum is there. Will he be? Well, I'll give you what I think the Bengals big board looks like in a later video on Wednesday. All right, so Linderbaum 1. 2, no, it's not a corner. It is a defensive player. George Karlaftis, the edge out of Purdue. I think this guy, much like Linderbaum, we could look up and say, did he really fall? Now, I think it's less likely that he falls. I think it's more likely than not that he's a top 15, top 20 pick. But he's got the goods, man. I think he's, just a relentless edge rusher. You put him on the other side of Trey Hendrickson, and you could look up, and this guy could have double-digit sacks. And he's got good size to him. You'd be able to kick him inside at times if you need him to. And, he just productive player. And it's weird. I think that he's going to be off the board, but if not, I think the Bengals would take him over Linderbaum. I think they would take him over any of the corners, which we'll get to. George Karlaftis, number 2 on my big board. By the way, shout out to Rivertown Inquiry. Look at this. Go to rivertowninquiry.com and pick up the shirt right now so you can be, wearing... Look at the jungle, baby. Anyways, number 3, Daxton Hill. I mentioned him and Karlaftis both in my Dark Horse video on Tuesday. Daxton Hill's a stud, and I took him in Sports Illustrated's publisher mock draft, which you can check out at allbengals.com, because a lot of the top guys were gone. And to me, he is a top guy. And if he falls, well, great. I'll play him in the nickel at times. I'll move him around in 3 safety sets. He's a big hitter despite being 190, and he's a guy that you can move around as a chess piece. I think Lou Anarumo would be excited to have Daxton Hill on his team. That's who I would take there. So there's the top 3, Linderbaum, Karlaftis, Hill. Now it's Devonte Wyatt, who obviously fills a glaring need. If he's there, I think much like Karlaftis, the Bengals would be drooling at the idea of getting him in that defensive line room. And what's not to like? He fills that 3-tech spot probably better than anyone else in this draft. And yeah, he's a little older, 24 years old. There's some off-the-field questions, but the Bengals, they're able to look at that, vet that, and if they feel like he can be make an instant impact at that 3-tech spot, especially because it's shallow there in this draft class, I think going that route at 31 would make a lot of sense. My 5th player on the big board, Zion Johnson, the interior lineman, and I call him interior. He did play some tackle at Boston College, but Zion Johnson is an interior lineman in the NFL, and I like it because he's got some center flexibility, played there at the Senior Bowl. I think he could play both guard spots. I think he would beat out Jackson Carman day 1 and instantly, much like Tyler Linderbaum, upgrade your offensive line. I have him 5th. 6th is where they could go. And it might be in an ideal world where the Bengals are thinking and where they're leaning. Kaiir Elam, the cornerback out of Florida. I like him a lot. And I think it's pretty easy to see that he could be their top-ranked corner, like in this group of guys. Obviously, Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley, even Trent McDuffie, who I think could fall, by the way. Maybe I should have added him to the dark horse list. But I think those guys are it's assumed that those guys are going to be gone when the Bengals are on the clock. Kaiir Elam could be gone too. And it wouldn't be shocking if he was gone, but I think that if you can get him, given the way he moves, he's got runs under a 4.4, is a little grabby, right? He has 7 penalties, I think, in 10 games, so that's a concern. But outside of that, checks a lot of boxes, and I think could be a future Pro Bowler and probably has the highest ceiling of any of these cornerbacks. The Kyler Gordon, Andrew Booth, Kaiir Elam types, even. The kid out of Auburn, Roger McCreary, I think Elam is probably first of that group, and that's why he's 6th on my board. 7th, Logan Hall, little positional flexibility. You could put him at 3-tech, little 5-tech, inside, line him up, let him get after the quarterback as an interior pass rusher. I know some people think he could play defensive end, others don't. I think he could in games against guys like, and maybe it isn't a Lamar Jackson, but against run-heavy teams, maybe it is, the Tennessees of the world could certainly do that. I don't know if you're going to do that against teams that are throwing it all over the field. Maybe so, but I think Logan Hall certainly in the mix. He's my 7th player. I like him a lot. Could be a trade down candidate, I think, for the Bengals. I don't know if they would take him at 31, but they might. Wouldn't shock me. 8th on my big board is Kyler Gordon. I like Kyler Gordon a lot. And no, he doesn't have the long speed, but that's one measurable. Checks all the other boxes. Agility, awesome. I think he's got that short space quickness. I think he could move inside and outside if you needed him to. And to me, there's just so many times where he comes up big on the ground, these big physical players that there's this one play that I saw, and I'm trying to think about who tweeted it out so I could refer to it. But he gets hit by a fullback or a tight end, and it's a goal line play. And his back is turned to the ball because he gets just drilled by the oncoming blocker. And he turns and still makes the tackle. And not many cornerbacks would do that. And so I like Kyler Gordon a lot. And I think that the Bengals could like him a lot. And, is he a trade down candidate? Is he a guy that they would consider at 31? I think he could be in consideration at that 31st pick. It might be towards the end of that line of players, of that bucket of tier bucket or tier, whatever you want to say, of players for the 31st pick, but I certainly think he's in play there. Andrew Booth Jr. is, my 9th player. And to me, I like Booth, but he didn't test, and that's scary. And I wonder, at the same time, he would make a ton of sense. And if you could get a guy like Booth, it fills that role and you feel comfortable with it. It might excite you a little bit, right? If you could get a guy like Booth to fill that corner role. And I think he may be ahead of Elam on their board, ahead of Gordon on their board. Not on mine. Part of that is he didn't test. He's got the injury history. There's little things like that, but he does have the flashes, man, the one-handed grabs and things like that. So maybe, never say never. And my 10th guy is Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State, the edge rusher. And so we got 2 edge rushers in my top 10. And I like Ebiketie a lot. I think he's going to get some heat on opposing quarterbacks day one. I think he has the athletic traits to do so. And so you line him up on the edge and say, all right, go get the quarterback, young man. And you teach him the other ins and outs of the game and everything like that and have him develop in other areas. But, certainly someone, I think a trade down candidate would be Ebiketie if he's still there, if they trade down to 37, 38, 40, that would be a guy that I think would be on their board and in that tier of guys. So here's the 10 again. A couple of edge rushers made it, a bunch of defensive backs, a couple offensive linemen, guys that didn't make it. Kenyon Green did not make the cut. So that's proof that I'm not offensive line biased. No receivers in this group for me. Look, would I love to say Chris Olave or would I love to say Jamison Williams? Of course. I think those guys are going to be gone. I think it's unrealistic. I do like George Pickens on the football field. I love his hands, man. He's got strong-ass hands. And so there are guys that I like, Burks out of Arkansas as well. So there are guys I like, but this is not the time. Notice no Trey McBride either, no tight end making this list. So Tyler Linderbaum, George Karlaftis, Daxton Hill, Devonte Wyatt, Zion Johnson, Kaiir Elam, Logan Hall, Kyler Gordon, Andrew Booth Jr., and Arnold Ebiketie. That is my 10. The big board is set, at least my big board. I'm going to have another video on Wednesday afternoon, by the way, that drops. That's going to be all about the Bengals and their big board, what I think it is, and we'll see. But exciting times for the Bengals. And what do you agree? Do you think I'm insane? Dax Hill, 3rd? Are you kidding me? He's ahead of Kaiir Elam? He is. That's my guy. I was tempted to put him 2nd, but Tyler Linderbaum is the play for me. We'll see what they do. We'll have more. So hit that subscribe button. Ring the bell for notifications. I'm James Rapien signing off for now right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk.